All right, let's go over the warm-up problems. It asks you to graph the equations that were given. In order to graph, we know that we need the slope and the y-intercept. So every single time we're going to write m equals blank, b equals blank. I want you doing this on your papers every time you have to graph or write the equation of a line. This is going to help us stay focused on what we need to do, keep everything straight, and get us the right answer. So always m equals blank, b equals blank. Now I'm looking at the equation and I realize right off the bat that this is already in slope-intercept form, which would always be our first step. Y equals mx plus b. That means the negative 3/4 is my m, the negative 6 is my b. Be real careful with signs. Make sure you're not losing negatives anywhere and that you're always keeping the sign in front of the term with that sign, with that term, sorry, with that number. So now that I have my slope and my y-intercept, I'm ready to graph. I always start by plotting the y-intercept. We know that this is a point where x is 0. The intercepts can be written as point always. At the y-intercept, x is 0. At the x-intercept, y is 0. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's my y-intercept. I start by plotting it. Then starting at that point, I'm going to rise and run the value of the slope. So I will rise 1, 2, 3. I will run 4 to the left because this slope is negative. And I know that I run left for negative. Once I have my 2 points, I will draw a line through them with an arrow on each end. And there is the graph of y equals negative 3/4 x minus 6. Let's look at the second one. Second one gives me an equation, negative 5y equals negative 15. All right, I know that I want it in slope-intercept form, so the first thing I'm going to do is solve for y. I need to isolate y, get it by itself. So I'm going to start by dividing by negative 5. Those cancel. Negative 15 divided by negative 5 gives me positive 3. So I end up with just y equals 3. Hopefully you remember those special cases, vertical and horizontal lines, and we talked about the way that we recognize them is this tells us which axis does it cross and where. So this is my x-axis, this is my y-axis. It's saying it has to cross through the y-axis at 3. One that's here. The only way that I can make that happen is to draw a horizontal line. For a horizontal line, if I had another point, I could rise 0, run however many I wanted. So the slope is 0. And on this one, my y-intercept is 3. Make sure you review those special cases if this one caught you off guard. Okay? All right, and the last one. This time you were given 2 points. I write m equals blank, b equals blank, knowing that those are the things that I need to find before I can graph this line. So I'm going to start with finding my slope. I label my points, x1, y1, x2, y2. Always my first step when I'm using the slope formula. I'm going to write the formula out, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay. Now I'm going to plug the numbers in where they go. So my y2 is 6. Minus my y1 is 3, x2 is 2, minus my x1 is 0. 6 minus 3 is 3, 2 minus 0 is 2, so the slope of this line is 3/2. Okay, now I have the slope, and I have points, but I have my y-intercept? Because I know that's the other thing I need to know. Well, what do we know is always true at the y-intercept? At the y-intercept, x is always 0. So this point actually gave me my y-intercept. Okay? If that was not the case, I could use the point and the slope. I could plug them into y equals mx plus b, and I could solve for b. Now today we're going to learn about point-slope form, which is going to be another option for plugging the numbers in if you're given a point and the slope and solving for the y-intercept. But since we have them here, we will go ahead and graph. We know our first step in graphing is to plot the y-intercept. So I'm going to plot the y-intercept over 0 up 3. Okay. Starting at that point, I'm going to rise and run the value of the slope. Rise 3, run 2 to the right because it's positive. I take straight edge and I draw a line through those points with an arrow on each end, and this would be the graph of a line that passes through these 2 points.